What's happening, my epic people? I hope you're all doing amazing. Not being too put off by the cold weather. Oof. That sort of took a drastic turn out of nowhere, really, didn't it? But never bother. Shouldn't stop us getting out and about, that's for sure. I mean, people probably think that I'm absolutely crazy for doing this, but to be honest, you've got good control of your motorcycle and you keep to a few fundamental rules, I suppose, if you want to call them rules. Laws of physics. Probably the best way to describe it. So I thought I must talk about then how you should be riding in this colder weather. And I do actually have to fill up with fuel as well, so we'll kill two birds with one stone. So, cold weather, the obvious snow, ice, and it's quite damp, sun's fairly low. But before we start talking about the actual riding of your motorcycle in this weather, we'll talk about before you even set off. First thing first is your mindset. If you do not feel confident enough, then maybe have a little think about whether or not you should even go out at all. And that's not me putting anybody down. Please don't have your ego tramped on by what I'm saying. It's not about that. It's about knowing you're going to be able to make it home alive to your loved ones. You know, that's the most important thing. What's the point in going out just for the sake of, oh yeah, I'm hard enough? If you don't actually feel confident, stay at home, take the car, get a bus, train, whatever. But if you fancy the challenge and you feel confident, then do it. You'll only have a lot of fun doing so anyway. And not only that, is when you do get to the nice dry weather, you'll feel so rewarded for it. Oh, I didn't even turn this heated glove on. So that's the mindset to think about. So next then I would like to put on the list is about your clothes. Yeah, your gear that you're wearing. And yet again, this also comes down to partly ego, but also what can you actually afford. Well, what I say to my students, and to anybody else really, is buy the gear, the best gear that you can afford. Because at the end of the day, if you take a tumble, you want to know you're well protected. If you go out in the cold, you want to know that the temperature isn't going to affect you too bad. Now, one of my colleagues I work with, he's quite old school, you know, good bloke, really good bloke. You know, I learned a hell of a lot off him, and he's where he's so old school. He's like, heated gear, ugh. Yeah, he doesn't really get behind it. When actually, here's what I reckon: is if I was to get him a pair of heated gloves, which I might just do as a present. Because he's been so damn good to me, I think he'd wear them. I genuinely do. Now, I don't care if that makes me a bit of a pussy. I'll wear my heated gear. I've got my heated jacket on right now. I've got my heated gloves. And, I mean, dude, it's 2 degrees. At least in sunny Norfolk it is. It's colder elsewhere. I'd rather be out on my ride and enjoy it, you know, knowing that my body's feeling nice and toasty. So, like I said, before you even leave, make sure you've got a good jacket, good trousers, good boots, good gloves. Take a balaclava, take a neck warmer. But obviously what happens usually with winter gear is it's quite puffy and heavy and cumbersome. But in this day and age, a lot of stockists actually have, you know, decent gear which isn't actually too thick. Like these Kais heated gloves, you know, they don't look like really thick winter gloves. I've got other pairs which just look absolutely ginormous, but these are really, really good. You know, I can feel the controls well enough, plug them straight into the bike, so there's no lag on heat. So yeah, they're perfect for this. My heated jacket, okay, I know they can be a bit expensive, but if you do plan to ride through the winter, you'll certainly be a lot happier with it. So definitely think about investing. Neck warmer, keep your neck warm, keep your face warmer. Here with the balaclava. Nice boots, nice big boots. Go all the way up the calf. Now, I'm not telling you to borrow your wife's knee-high boots, as sexy as you may think you look in them. We're talking about getting some decent protective boots, especially, you know, the likelihood of taking a tumble can be more likely if you're riding around on snow and ice. So it's not even the faster speeds that could do it, it's the slow speed. You know, stopping at a traffic light, a little bit of ice, or even when you're riding along very slow, 5-10 miles an hour. You know, all it takes is that back end to wash out, and now you've got a bike on top of your ankle. So I want to know that I've got decent enough boots that can protect against that. So now let's talk about the riding itself. Okay, you've got your good gear, you've got your bike. So with your bike, if you've got the modes, rain mode, yeah, extra slip control, things like that, so like this bike does, if I go through my settings, it's just telling me there's a nice little ice warning and I've got low fuel. Tell me something I don't know. Yeah, so this is what I want to do. Traction control is on. I'm happy with that. Now, I haven't got it in rally mode because I do want it to protect me as best as I can. So, but what I can do, if I go into my motorcycle here, I can change that to rain mode. But we're going a bit of speed. Close the throttle. There we go. Now it's in rain mode. What that does is that limits the throttle response. So in case I get a little bit too ham-fisted with it, hopefully that should help save my bacon if the rear wheel slips out. Now don't get me wrong, older motorcycles, they obviously don't have riding mode, so it's all about what you do with your right hand, it's all about what you do with your brakes and the correct gearing, and also with your cornering. So what I tend to do, especially in these colder, wetter months, is I lean my body off that bit more, as if I'm about to try to get a knee down, but I don't want to lean the bike over too much. So I'm trying to keep the bike as upright as possible, but then offset the balance by leaning off the bike. Now don't try to get your knee down like Marquez, it's just a slight lean on your cheek and get yourself over to the mirror. So that's your cornering. I thought, well, there actually is a corner, because I'm now about to go on to a dual carriageway anyway. Now with your throttle, nice and gentle. Doesn't need to be hammered like you usually would be, say, in the dry summer, spring, autumn months, when you can get away with it a bit more. So even with your gear changes, even though you're working your way through the higher gears, just because you think you might be a little bit safer to open up a bit more, just keep it nice and smooth. All of your inputs should be very, very smooth. And don't be impatient. If you think the cars in front are being a little bit slow, so what? Use it as an opportunity for you to chill out and go a bit slower. You don't want to be going crazy. Just keep your distance, longer braking distances. Now with your brakes, it's very important, but while we're on the topic of braking distances, now when it's only damp, I'd use my front and my back brake together, but what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't be so aggressive with my front as I would do when I'm in the dry. So I sort of split the difference between the front and the back brake together. Now depending on who you are, and depending on what side you sort of lean on, there's people out in this world who swear only by the front brake and they never ever use the rear brake. They don't think of how useful it is. They don't consider it there at all, like it should never be used, which I find a bit odd. But hey ho, that's just me. I love my rear brake, I live on the thing. Slow speeds, faster speeds, what have you. Always good for more stability. Now, in the wet, like I was saying, front and rear brake together, but keeping more of a distance from you and the vehicle in front is key. Now, when it's dry, I tend to keep a nice 2-second gap from you and the vehicle in front as a rough guide. Yeah, 2 or more, in fact. When it's wet, I like to keep a nice 4-second gap. So the way I measure my 2-second gap is from you and the vehicle in front, find a fixed point that that vehicle in front has gone past, and say this little rhyme: only a fool breaks the 2-second rule. So that's when it's dry. And when it's wet, I'd like to keep a 4-second gap. Now, saying the phrase only a fool breaks the 4-second rule doesn't quite cut the mustard, I'm afraid. So here's what we like to say, and excuse me for the lady listeners, but it does help you remember. Only a fool breaks the 4-second rule, but only a twat gets closer than that. Or you could just say only a fool breaks the 4-second rule, only a fool breaks the 4-second rule. You can just say the rhyme twice. Now, how many seconds do you think it is when it's slippery, snow, ice between you and the car in front? What if I said to you 10-second gap between you and the car in front, and use the rear brake only? Would you believe me? But that is it. That's a good general rule of thumb that will keep you safe with your brakes. Now, not only that, by keeping that brake distance between you and the car in front, you will also be able to see if there's any anomalies or any changes in road surface, potholes, slippery bits of ice, and anything that you might need to take action for before it gets to you. There is absolutely no point being butted right up close to the vehicle in front, and then all of a sudden the car goes over a big pothole you didn't see because you're too close, and you get the shock of your life and you have no time or space to move out of the way. So just think about that. So now you've got the braking out of the way, you understand how that works, you understand your throttle inputs, nice and smooth, nice and gentle. Also, sticking to the speed limits or the conditions of the road, whatever comes first. Now, it might not, even though the road speed might be 60, it might be a national speed, doesn't mean it's necessarily safe to do 60. So just adjust it accordingly. Take extra care coming up to roundabouts. Make sure you're able to give yourself enough time coming around them. If you see any damp patches that look a bit suspect, like they're on the floor, just be careful. If it's dry, but it was snowing the night before, and you see a bit of a black surface on the road, could it be ice? Could it be diesel? Could it be oil? Could it be absolutely anything? So it just seems a bit suspect when it's dry. Now when it's wet, things like diesel, that will show up. It shows up a nice rainbow colour and you could smell it. But ice is a bit of a bugger, so you've got to be careful of that sort of thing. So stick to the appropriate speeds, even if it has to be slower than the speed limit. Now also, when it is in the colder months, it tends to become quite a bit more windy, so going past larger vehicles. Now a bike of this size, not too bad, but smaller bikes tend to get blown around a little bit. So try to keep yourself a nice distance between you and the truck to the side of you, because what it can do is it can blow you in or suck you in, and then as soon as you get past it, it'll blow you out. It gives you a bit of a wibble and a wobble, so just be careful. What I tend to do is I don't tend to panic too much when it comes to larger vehicles, and not because of the size of the bikes. I've had all kinds of size bikes, smaller, larger, all sorts, even when I was back on the old 125 days. And what I tend to do is when I feel the wind start to pick up and blow me about a bit, I don't panic, I just let it sort of cruise me over to one side. Keep a little bit of pressure on your handlebar, so put that counter steering into practice and just push into the wind, but not a lot, just a little bit, and then that should hopefully see you right with the wind. But most importantly, don't panic. I know the first time you ever experience wind hitting you from the side when you're riding a bike, it can be, you know, quite jolting to the system. But once you've gotten used to it a few times, it's not that bad. Okay, so that's the techniques for riding. Now a few little extras just for you to think about. Is your bike actually kitted out for the winter as well? Okay, my bike here has got heated grips. Yeah, it keeps the undersides of my hands warm and the tops of my hands are warm from the gloves. What about your screen? Is it large enough to flick the wind over the top of you? How about the actual size of the engine here, or the tank even? Does it allow the wind to get past you? Hopefully then keeping you a bit warmer. There are all kinds of little gubbins and extra things that you can do. How about some hand guards? They can be quite good for keeping the wind off your hands. If you're on a scooter, or if you don't mind, even on one of the bigger bikes, you can get handlebar muffs. But if you are going to have some handlebar muffs, please do not let that discourage you from wearing gloves. You must still wear gloves, because if you take a tumble, your hands are still going to be exposed. So wear your gloves. And also, then you've got to start thinking about your visibility as well. Is your bike visible enough? Are you visible enough? Okay. But more importantly from being visible is your road positioning. Are you in the correct place to be seen in good time? Can you see everything that's coming up ahead? So anyway guys, that is just my thoughts on cold winter riding and, you know, wet weather, slippery surfaces, that sort of thing. Obviously now we are pretty much in the thick of it. Nice and early, might I add. Actually, I don't remember it being 2 degrees, 1 degree, 0 degrees, minus, you know, temperatures in December for a fair few years, but here we are. So who knows, we might even get rid of it nice and early, so we can begin an early spring summer for riding. Alright guys, anyway, I hope it's all helped. If you're looking for any CVTs, don't hesitate to get in touch with Dave Berkshire Motorcycles and ask for me, Sam, and come and get booked in for your CVT. And if there's anything else I can help with, don't hesitate to drop me a message in the comments, or even drop me a message on Instagram. I'm always more than happy to help, and you just never know. It's one piece of advice could save your life. Alright guys, so until next time, catch you soon. Peace out.